We are recording.
Did you get that email I sent you with Magic versus Mystery?
Yes, I did. That was really awesome. And do you have a knife there? Is that what you got?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just nice to know. All right, Arthur, I think you are the one who is opening.
Nope.
Oh, no, you're opening up the.
I did it last time. I'm not going to do it now.
Okay, I guess it is Lao with the knife.
Hi and welcome. We're glad you are with us. Two monks, one cave. And no, Aurora's not the cave. She's the adult in the room. We're glad you're with us, as always. And we're glad that you are low enough in your self-esteem that you would continue to listen to us, knowing no matter how bad you feel, listening to us tells you you're not doing so bad. Now, if you'd like to hit like and subscribe, do it. Just why not? But in the meantime, we have a very interesting conversation about something that Arorah will not spill the beans, so we will learn when you learn what the hell we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so what he's talking about is that they all said, well, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I'm going to talk about magic. And they said, well, what are you going to say? What point of view are you going to have? And I'm going to say, like, I'm going to introduce it and then we're going to discuss it. And I'm not going to spill all the beans at once. So
the mystery of the feminine continues.
That's right. That's right.
Dun, dun,
I have
dun.
The mysterious girl. Still
The mysterious
a
girl
deputy of the Royal Western Mother.
That's right. That is right. So yeah, I'm the one introducing. So I just get to take all that power and use it however I want. So.
Sounds like a room there was, in the basement somewhere with leather straps.
Okay, well, I'm going to just bounce over that comment and move on to the topic. So the topic is magic. And the way I want to introduce magic is because, in Taoism, and I know both you, Lao, and Arthur, and, myself included, there is really something about Taoism, being a wizard and looking at magic and, all those different sorts of things that people are very attracted to. And sometimes are a little disappointed when they come in and find out they can't levitate or that they can't, make things happen.
We can?
Not right away.
Okay, cool.
Only on Tuesdays, from what I heard, right?
Only on Tuesday. Well, at any rate, so I was actually reading in this book here this morning, the chapter on magic. And one of the things that we think about when we think about magic, we think about something like supernatural, when actually it's the most natural thing in us. Like if you think about the way you were when you were a child, the world was so magical and you had all these magical abilities. And I think that one of the things as we grow up into adulthood and we become like scientific, in fact, magic used to be science before science became science, right? And so we think about, okay, we need to let go of all magic because that was childish. And now we're adults and we just have to think like adults. But there's a difference between magical thinking, which is sort of childlike, right? And thinking magically. Because thinking magically is solution oriented. It is things that are possibilities rather than, I'm just going to buy, a lottery ticket and make $1 million. That's magical thinking, right? And I'm going to get out of my debt, my problems by doing that. But thinking magically is really, I think, what we as Taoists are about. And that is seeing the world, seeing everything in a spiritual way. One of my feng shui teacher used to say, if you go by your stove, touch the stove, give it a name, he's like, that's a very spiritual way of living, is like connecting with everything. So we have plants and rocks and, so many things that are beyond what we really understand. And so as we reach out to these other entities, we can get messages from them. I mean, that's what tarot is. That's what, going out into nature, taking a walk, you're getting a message and it's, from nature. So I want to read this one quote. So we're going to have a quote to start with today. And this is from Thomas Sheridan's book, The Druid Code. And he talks a lot about druids, which are magical, pagan, people who work in magic. But he says this, and this is why he's making it so that, to let us all see that we're all magicians. He says, like, if we ask the question, what is magic? Magic is the realization of something that was created within the consciousness and then brought into reality. I'm going to read that one more time. Magic is the realization of something that was created within the consciousness and then brought into reality. For example, if someone writes a song from a tune in their head, that is a magical act. If someone designs a machine and builds it, that is magic. Magic is the conforming of reality with the will. It is all about the energy of consciousness manifesting the energy of materialism. So he's talking about the will, and he's talking about the energy of consciousness. So I'm going to leave it at that and let you guys jump in and see what you think about.
So it seems that all my life I've been magical. I mean, now that Arorah has explained it to me correctly,
You are magical.
I mean, all my life I've been a startup entrepreneur, made something happen from nothing. So I guess what we're talking about here is from non-being to being, right? Manifesting being from non-being. Okay, great. I'll tell my wife.
She's magical. She can make some fucking delicious.
She's very magical.
Scratch.
And so is your daughter. Your daughter's freaking magical. You should bring on some of your daughter's artwork. She's got such a beautiful eye in the way she sees the world. I mean, that's
she actually did a imitation of Jason Pollock when she was 3 years old. And I swear, you cannot tell it. I looked at it, I keep looking at it to this day. I'm going, this is exactly like it.
That's
amazing. I mean, where did she get it from?
And so, that I think also too, it has to do with genius, something that you're born with, that is just innately, like they talk about the genie or the genie inside of each of us, and it's our genius. And that, that's part of our magic. That's part of, working that part of ourselves we're creating our magic from that genius within us. Lao, did you want to say something about that?
I mean, this is a fraught subject.
Dear.
I'm glad we have an hour, because this isn't going to be an easy topic to just parse out, because in reality, you got to distinguish magic from mysticism. Magic, like she said, in the Druid Code, but Crowley is probably the most notorious for saying it, that magic is creating change and conformity with the will.
Yes.
I will tell you, I wouldn't give a warm glass of piss if it was on fire, for most people's concept of magic. And here's why. Because will has to be either made with a capital W, meaning the divine will. So this would be your genius.
And this is a capital W, by the way.
Right, but most people, they don't differentiate.
Yeah.
And so the capital W will, the will of if you're in the Western tradition, a holy guardian angel. If you're in the Eastern tradition, your Buddha, your Atman, your Adi Buddha, your immortal, your Shen, whatever.
Or sourced Tao.
Say whatever, man. Say whatever. Skin that bitch alive. Do your thing. Then, in that case, you can have an overlap with magic and mysticism. However, most people are, when they create magic, especially when they want to create change, I want to create change, itself will run right. It's just mental masturbation. They're delusional, and most of the time, they're children throwing tantrums because they can't make the world the way they want it. And so I'm going to fucking find some loophole around it to use superstition and self-delusion to make my world do what I want because I know best, which is why their life's usually shit. They're usually broke, and they have a huge chip on their shoulder and terrible relationships, right? And then they usually end up becoming Buddhists. It's a sick. You don't want to.
So I think, like become Buddhist. So I think that what you're saying is really, again, the difference of using magic and magical thinking. Because if I'm using magic for my ego, and that's where, we can differentiate between white magic and black magic. Like we use a lot of black magic when we talk to ourselves in a negative way, or we talk to other people in a negative way. I mean, we talk about, the word was born, and what is the word? Word is a spell. Whatever you use the word for, it's like, that's why we have spelling. We spell words. So whatever I'm using words for is what I'm creating, whether it's only in here or it's out there, and how I'm speaking to other people. So what you're talking about, Lao, I think is just that when your ego is involved, your identity is involved in your magic, it's not pure. It's
not.
got an agenda attached to it.
Yeah, it's not even magic. It's wishful fucking thinking.
Mhm.
It's all it is. And most people who do it, no, I did this spell one time. Okay, man, skin your bitch alive. Well, if that's the case, why is your life falling apart? Why are you a fucking train wreck? I mean, come on. Well, no, because there's these entities, and they're always trying to keep me from it. Oh, of course, there's invisible fucking people who are against you too. Not to mention the forces arrayed against you because of your bad decisions. It's a pathology that happens because people aren't taught very young how the world actually works. Because most of the people who would teach you don't even know either.
So
Mrs. Go ahead.
can I ask a clarifying question just so I can follow you? Aren't taught how the world actually works, or aren't taught to see the world as it is?
In some ways, it's the same. You can't teach a child to see the world as it is. They don't have enough context for the nuance in that.
Mm-hmm.
You can only show them the nuts and bolts at the beginning. That's all you can show them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then as time and heartbreak and different things happen, they start to go, well, okay, but if these are the nuts and bolts, why does it happen this way? It's like, but now you have to understand tendencies, right? Metronomes work in a particular way, but you leave them alone long enough, they all synchronize. Now that technically shouldn't happen, but yet it eventually happens. So what's the thing that's synchronizing all the metronomes when they should, by definition, maintain their autonomous independent? The answer is magic. But like you were saying though, you're right. It's not supernatural, it's hypernatural. The problem is our thinking is half the time unnatural.
Exactly.
So torn away from reality.
Of course, because like, for example, I talk a great deal about brain chemistry, neural physiology, and psychology and anatomy. I talk a lot about hormones. I talk a lot about geology. I talk a lot about particle physics. These are extraordinarily magical concepts. We can't, no matter how fucking deep we go, I don't give a shit if you can write all Schrodinger's equations and all of Euclid's propositions. You cannot tell me you understand it. You can tell me you have concepts. I'll grant you that, but you cannot understand it. And here's why: we cannot think. We did not evolve to think in such a large context. I want to take you on a concept of magical thinking that you won't think of as magical. Newton, Einstein, Max Planck, Mendeleev, Niels Bohr, Tesla, all of these people created innumerable contributions to what we know as science. But they all have something in common that's not very scientific. They were all very deeply spiritual men.
Mm-hmm.
When we start taking rationalization to its level where materialism and rationalism is all there is, because we need to get out superstition. I hate superstition as much as the next guy. But there is a slice that is
Knock on wood.
What's that?
Knock on wood.
Right? But there is a utility to leaving this big gap for I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
You can call that God. You can call it universe. You can call it the Octurians.
Or you can call it humility.
You can call it whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Point is there's a slice, and it's a large slice that will always be, but we don't know. So if you go to quantum mechanics, I generally love the topic, but I hate how people talk about it because quantum mechanics doesn't go by the rules, so I can just say whatever the fuck I want. Just say it's quantum, and you have to say it's okay because you don't understand it, and I don't understand it, but I can just put all the shit I don't understand. It's like, stop doing that. Stop that. Because there is something truly to it, but you just piss all over it with your assumptions. It's not intuitive. You cannot intuit these things. That's why people go, well, if it's intuitive, it must be magical. No, no, because the way that the human evolved, intuition, is usually always wrong. Okay? It's
Okay,
almost always
hold
wrong.
on. Let's just say more about that. What do you mean that intuition is always wrong, or that the way it
It's
evolved?
usually always wrong. Well, if you're in a fire, 9 times out of 10, you're going to run. When you're in that state, you're going to run instinct, and that instinct is going to send you right the fuck into the fire to die.
It is instinct different than intuition.
Yes.
No, it's informed by intuition because it's informed by intuition. And here's why. It is knowledge that is non-ordinary in its state of perception, informing your decisions. And the problem with it is like, for example, when you're doing quantum mechanics, it's almost always counterintuitive. For example, beginning, middle, end, that's intuitive. That's linear. That's how we process things. But that's not how it works. And so when you get two black holes that are slurring each other, the math shows you that the present will be informed by the future, which will determine the past.
Mhm.
That's not intuitive. That is the least intuitive thing in the world. The universe itself is predominantly made of chaos. No, I'm not endorsing chaos magic, but it's predominantly chaos, which means it doesn't have to follow any ascribed rules. Hence, you can use the term magic, although, again, most people's firm magic is more Harry Potter than anything actually real. The concept of magic should give you a sense of wonder and allow you archetypical thinking, not wishful, childish thinking. But it doesn't work in the way you think it will work. Because when you're like, okay, well, I'm going to do this spell, right? Which is like you're saying, you speak it into existence, you spell it out, right? Because the vowels that give it the power, so to speak. And so when you speak it into existence, but when it comes, almost everybody who practices magic is always like, how the fuck? Wait, I didn't know it was going to turn out this way. It's like, well, of course you didn't know it was going to turn out this way. It's magic. If you knew it, if you could intuit it, then it wouldn't be fucking magic, would it?
So there's this guy who he's a cartoonist, and he gave a speech about making sigils, and he was talking about the cartoons that he was making, and he made himself like the hero of the cartoon, and you know, so the cartoon guy looks like him, and he said he started to make, you know, these characters, these female characters, and then he started meeting all these female characters, and he said, but the problem was that they were all crazy, and they all looked like this cartoon woman that I was creating. And then he said one of the things that he did with his character in the cartoon was he made the character, you know, have some kind of like attack, you know, like a heart attack or something like that, or he was attacked, and then this guy ended up in the hospital. and you know, it just goes with what you're saying, is like, you know, be careful what you wish for, because if you get it, it may be not what you thought it was going to be. And he's like, so you have to be really, really careful when you're making sigils or when you're, you know, creating things. And it reminds me also of the gypsy curse, which is, may you get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's not intuitive. You can't intuit it.
Yeah.
Right? People like to use intuition, and it's not that it has no utility, but you can't have intuition in magic. It doesn't work, because that would say that you are somehow in tune with how things are going to play out. Can you think of any more hubris than understanding all the myriad things that go into make anything possible, and you somehow have the fucking inside track on that?
So what you're saying is that our limitations are very much finite, and we're playing with infinite forces.
Of course, because think about it. We evolved for specific things. We didn't evolve for reality. When people keep wanting to be like, no, humans are so smart and divine. I mean, yeah, but no. We're designed, reproduce, then please fucking die as quickly as possible. So you stop taking up available resources for the next thing to come and reproduce. And that's what we do. That's it. That's what the biological system does. Now, we're not just a biological system, but we're not separate from it either. Do you know what I mean? And so the magic is the synergy of this infinite thing while simultaneously having this very finite thing. And somehow that paradox, when no resistance to the way things are moving, when involved in the flow, which we call Wu Wei in Taoism, when that happens, these completely improbable and amazingly magnificent, munificent things happen against our best efforts to fuck it up and get in the way.
So it's like they say in AA, let go and let God.
Right.
So,
well, yeah.
so another way perhaps of looking at that is our perspective. What we think of as magic is just a limitation of our perspective.
Right. So this goes into what true magic is. And it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it's more powerful than anything you're going to find wearing crazy cosplay shit. The world, there's 3 house rules, right? Paradox, humor, change. Paradox is the key to magic. Change is the mechanism by which magic happens, right? Change in conformity with the will. But change, any Taoist that has ever done any type of Taoist magic, but I would say even it doesn't matter if it's Tibetan bond magic, if it, I don't care if it's Native American, whatever, it doesn't matter. It is simply the changing of one thing to the other, harnessing that ability to utilize that change, not impede it, not form it, not do it, but to utilize it is where true magic comes from. So a Taoist seeks to understand things as they are, seeks to understand themselves as they are, and then in the process of those changes, for example, simple magic, take a seed in the spring, put it in the ground, put excrement and all this other stuff in there and aerate it and nitrogen and all this other stuff in the soil, you're going to get a shaft growing up with leaves and it will blossom from this little seed that if you open it up, there's nothing in there. And hocus fucking pocus. And if you let it keep going, it will bear more seeds and now you have it in perpetuity. How magical. Now, this is what you're talking about in terms of magical thinking. Nobody thinks it's magical because if it's commonplace, it's not magical. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? The most magical things are the most commonplace. You've got a ball of plasma in the sky 93 million miles away doing hundreds of millions of billions of nuclear fusion fucking reactions a second. That makes up 98% of all the fucking mass in this solar system with gamma rays, delta rays, UVA, UVB, all sorts of infrared, ultraviolet, all sorts of shit. And you're not fucking dead. And it wants to not only make you blossom and grow up, but fucking kill you too. How is that not magical?
Yeah.
But yet we don't think of it as magical because magical is getting what I want. That's ultimately what most people think of magic. But
And so
magic,
like what I was sort of saying in the beginning, and I think this is what you're getting at, is, just the word awareness. Like, what is it that you're aware of will bring whatever magic into your life? Like what my teacher said is, like, when you pass by the stove, be aware of it.
Yeah.
Like, thank it for what it's doing, the magic that it has, like all of these things, the awareness.
I think I'd like to add one more word into that equation, that's sensitivity.
sure. Yeah.
Right? Being
Yeah.
sensitive, like Lao was talking about, being sensitive to your flows, being sensitive to the changes happening, being sensitive to the flows out there, right? Developing that. Not the sensitivity you think about, Lao.
I'm thinking about the flows and what we were talking about when
See, when I think of magic, the only thing that comes up for me is the female orgasm.
That's pretty magical. But
Done right.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about magic.
Let's not leave the male orgasm out, dude. that's pretty magical too. The Big Bang.
I mean,
Was that the beginning of the universe?
The Big Bang is science's one magical thing, and then it's like, and now we're going to be scientific about everything else. But the Big Bang was the one magical thing that they gave themselves before they went into scientific.
well, here's the thing, right? the universe has nothing to do with what we think, and what we think has nothing to do with the universe. Meaning, what something is and what we think it is are two very, very different, vastly different things, right? Vastly
You're talking
different.
in a very materialistic way. Are you
I'm talking
about?
about even, I'm in a philosophical way. I'm telling in a metaphysical way.
Okay.
Okay, this is a comb. It's a wooden comb, but it's not a wooden comb. It's not a wooden comb.
No.
It's a piece of fucking wood. And which means it's a corpse of a tree. And which means it's the byproduct of a self-annihilating seed. But it's also the product of someone's mind. The mind that put it in the ground, the mind that took it out, mind that cut it down, the mind that shaped it. So why do I even give it the word comb? Because the comb is its function. Your chair is either wood, metal, plastic, some hybrid of all three. So is it plastic, wood, metal, or is it a chair? The chair is, we call things by their function, but the function is not what it is. It's simply what we're going to do with it. Nothing to do with the function of the thing. Does that make sense? What it is what it is.
Do you think that, talking about awareness, and what was your word, Arthur? Sensitivity.
Laos,
So like we look at it as a human being. So it's like, once you name something, have you taken the magic out of it?
No, aiming is the origin of all things.
That's right.
As Lao Shi says.
Then do you stop seeing it? It's sort of like, if I just see this as a chair, I actually stop seeing all those other elements that you were just talking about, and it's just like an object to me.
Right. So now take the concept of pu in Taoism, right? The uncarved block. Once you name it, you carve that block. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that if you can carve the block, you must also uncarve the block.
Well, the beauty is if you carve yourself, you can also uncarve yourself.
Right. So this is the basis of true magic, because you think of it as one thing, you have hocus pocus that bitch into being that thing. But it is not that thing. This is where alchemy goes to prima materia, expressed thing, lead, revert. We don't make lead to gold. We make lead back to the prima materia and re-express it as gold. Why? Because lead and gold are the same thing in different states, right? They're just like the same thing. So once the prima materia becomes lead, it goes, wait, now it's terminus. Why lead? Because lead is the one thing that for our lifetime will never break down. It will break down eventually in like 500 billion years. But for our sake, that's fucking eternity. Okay. But everything will eventually go back to being hydrogen, but it terminates at lead. So erbidium, berkelionium, all the noble gases, lanthanides, actinides, all things on the periodic table become lead, and they'll stay there for a long time. Okay, so that's why we do lead. It's also considered base, right? It's a base thing. It's worthless unless you're a fisherman. But if you take that base or corruptible thing and bring it back to its original thing, which is no thingness, it's even the pre-hydrogen thing, and then you re-express it, you're doing two things. One, you're seeing that all things are based on the same thing. But the whole path of the spiritual or magical is to understand that the prima materia doesn't know it's prima materia. It's never been anything else. So it goes lead. The reason why you make it back is you want to make it something and then make it nothing. Now it has a concept that, wait, I don't know what actually I am. The thing I expressed isn't what I was, but I don't really know what this is. So then it goes back to being gold. And then from gold, it will go back eventually. Now it's no longer the prima materia, it's called the ultima materia, which means it's self-aware of what no thing and thing is simultaneously. Magic is understanding this process. If you understand this process, you can create change, but you're not changing the thing. You can't change the thing. Hence eternal, hence, infinite, unchanging. But the thing that you're seeing is not the thing itself in the first goddamn place. You made it that way by utility, by use, or whatever. But seeing it as it is, now you can express it in another way. Hence, I'm going to give you a story, a very magical story. It's a very useful magical story, but most people won't see it as a magical story. I had a patient come to me one time for acupuncture. This was in 2011, very long time ago. And she brought a friend with her of Korean descent, born and raised in Korea, here, I think at the age of 20. She was mid 40s when she came. The client came, she sat there and she gets on the table and we're talking. And I look at her friend and I can see in her friend's face, she's about had it. She's at the end of her rope. And I mean like at the end of her rope. And I can tell that, I know that look. And I also know that culture. So I asked my client on the table, her friend's over there sitting on the chair. I said, do you trust me? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to do something. And it seemed a little crazy, but I need you to go with me on this. And she's like, okay. I'm like, just need to be quiet. She's like, okay. So I looked at her friend. I said, may I ask you a question? I know we're not very familiar with one another, but I'd like to ask you a question nonetheless. I think it's appropriate. She's like, sure. I'm like, how are you going to do it? And she's like, what do you mean? I mean, are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? Like, how are you going to do it? And she had this look, her eyes kind of got wide. She's like, I'm like, you bought the fucking gun, obviously. So how are you going to do it? My advice, now go in the bathroom though. Nobody wants to clean that shit up. At least don't be a dick on the way out, right? In the bathtub, rinse it down the drain. It's fine. But if you do this or this, you're going to fuck it up. Now, obviously, you've somehow fucked up life. Don't fuck up death too. At least be good at something. Lemmings are even good at that. But I'm just curious. And you could see that she was starting to tear up and her lips were quivering. She's like, and I was like, it's not a judgment. I'm just literally just curious because you never really get to ask these questions before. It's a rare chance. I'd like to understand your world. And she's like, what's the point of any of this? And I'm like, well, that's a whole other discussion. Are you not going to answer my question? I mean, just in case. She's like, I'm just so sick of all this. I'm like, yeah, I can understand. So tell me what this is, just out of curiosity. I mean, I'm not, you go home and do whatever you do. I'm not here to interrupt your day. I just want to understand because, as a guy who treats patients and works with people, I just kind of want to know. So we end up having like a 45-minute conversation. The girl on the table was just like, I sure the fuck hope you know what you're doing. And so by the end of it, I said, to answer your original question, what's the point of it all? The day you're born and the day you die. And in the middle, you can do whatever you want, and yet nobody ever does anything they want because you're too busy thinking life should be this way, having some idea of what life should be, or having this constant mindset. And you never accepted or learned to accept what things are. And because of that, what's happening is you've painted yourself into a box and it's all completely fucked up. You've given everybody a chance to approve or disapprove of you. Now, her mom had died, but her mom and her didn't end on very good terms. And even though she lives in America, she's still very Korean in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of Confucianism that sort of runs through that mentality. And so she's not okay with her ancestors. And so we had this long talk about things. And we laughed, we cried. She got pissed. I let her break some shit. It was great. I get a phone call at 9 a.m. the next morning. And I'm thinking, this is either going to be the coroner and she wrote a note, or it's going to be her. And she calls me and she's like, I don't know what you did. I don't know how you did it. I woke up this morning and my whole world was changed. And yet nothing's actually changed in my life. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, people are treating me different. People, my job is different. My relationship I have with my neighbor, who is usually antagonistic, is different. I didn't do anything different. I didn't change anything. They're all the same people, same things, but everything's different. I'm like, because the magic doesn't work if you try to change something outside of you. It's changing the seer. It's changing the understander. That's magic. This is why people who do magic never seek to look outward. They seek to look inward. If you look outward, then the world needs to be changed because you've externalized your process and you're trying to make that conform to your will. How can you? It's not you. It's shit you projected you onto, but it's not you.
And that's the magic that rebounds back on people when they actually do, chant the chants and try and, get other people to be,
100%.
they end up, getting, getting what, getting the back end of it, because we can't change people.
And there's no need to. There's no
No,
need to.
there isn't.
But if you understand your desire to change people is you're offshoring and projecting yourself onto them, and you think by changing them somehow you're changing you. Bullshit. You got to change you.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to escape from yourself, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to change everything around you except for yourself, simply just to escape that self, right?
Or to make yourself happy. It's like you need to be what I need you to be. So not for you.
But it's not because
Well,
you're an inadequate person. It's because it's the way you've been taught by example, right? Everywhere you look in the world is always interested in getting you involved in something bigger than yourself, right? In all these distractions and all these movements and all these ideas that is, again, outside of yourself. And now that was a beautiful story, by the way.
It was.
Very happy with the ending. I wasn't sure where it was going, frankly. But listen, a happy ending is a good ending, like we just talked about. Anyways, and so the idea is not to run away from yourself, but to realize that everything you need for that magic spell is inside you already. Right?
Yeah.
It's all there. All the components, all the spell components are there. Everything is there. You just have to be able to see them, have the right perspective on them.
Right. And this is what
that's what I'm sort of starting off with is that, see, like, I think, I've had suicidal feelings myself. And I think part of it is because I've lost the magic of me, lost the magic of feeling, of the awareness of the, no matter what life looks like right now, the miracle of it, like what you just said about the sun or the moon or smelling a flower or feeling my own skin, all of those things get lost in trying to prove myself, trying to make other people happy. As we said, trying to change other people so I can be happy. Trying to control the whole world. We lose our magic. We actually lose what makes us powerful.
Right, because most people confuse magic. What they're really saying is I want control.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'll tell you, John Cleese, who's one of the greatest Taoist immortals I've ever met, he's like number 9. He's usually, on the boat, but you just don't usually see him. But he's great.
It's only a flesh wound.
It's only a scratch. Yeah, but he once said that he was against censorship, which when you cut yourself down, when you self-edit, you're censoring yourself. He said he's not for it because what you're trying to do is control the outside world because you can't control your feelings. And so you got to control everything else around you so you don't have to feel what you feel, which means yours are going to amplify it. But here's the deal, right? I agree that a lot of people have lost the magic of them, but I would also like to state, I honestly believe the vast majority of people never experienced the magic of who they were. In the first place, they didn't lose it. They just never experienced it.
Yeah.
And people
I agree
around
with that
them
too.
Now, would you say they didn't experience it because they weren't shown how to experience it? Because their parents didn't know how to experience it?
Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is where people go. And I get a lot of times people tell me, I was thinking about going to this Native American tradition, or, I was thinking about going to South America and sitting with these shaman. And I'm like, skin that bitch alive, man. Go to town, do your thing. And the reason why is I really don't care about anybody's traditions. I really don't. For me, I've experienced them. I live with almost 4 dozen indigenous tribes and all. I wasn't interested in dogma, and I damn sure wasn't interested in, I wasn't interested in that. What I was interested in was understanding why people and how people, and that everybody's actually peopling the same, but it's not the same. And I'd like to understand that. But here's what I found. All of these traditions, which people think are hokey and stupid or whatever, they're not. They do something that is not self-evident to a person.
Mhm.
when they do the vision quest, or they go on the soul journeys, or oh, whatever the fuck, Sundance. It's allowing you to be in a non-ordinary state of perception of you, to see outside the edges of your normal day,
Exactly.
and therein you find one thing, maybe, just maybe one thing extraordinary about yourself. Then that one thing begets two things. And those two things beget three things. And the three beget the 10,000 things. And you start to realize most people's self-loathing comes from the fact that they have defined and carved their blocks so well, or clumsily, as the case may be,
Mhm.
that that's what they think they are. And everything else that they also are is completely, no, I'm not. And therefore, they've excised the magic because they're hoping and praying that they've carved it well enough that you'll like it, which means you like me. It's
And the only way that they can carve it is to to actually take someone else's carving and try and be that, they
right.
compare. It's just a comparison rather than
But,
something that just comes naturally, organically from yourself.
Yes, yes.
but also, like we talked about, the journey is not to avoid the carving,
Nope.
right? I mean, that's what we're here for. That's
Right.
why we're here in this particular reality dimension, whatever you want to call it. Is that carving is part of the process. You
Yes.
carving yourself is part of the process. And if you can get there, uncarving yourself is also part of the process. But here's the deal. You don't need to have a goal. You don't need to get somewhere, right?
No.
There is no such thing as you need to uncarve yourself 100%, right? That's not what Lao was talking about. That's not what you're talking about, Arorah. You're talking about beginning the process. And this is what Lao, I think this is what you meant. And, correct me if I'm wrong, is beginning the process of uncarving is when you start to see the edges
Yes.
of where what you really truly are, or what you were before you began to work on yourself.
Right. Now take that and understand that yes, you are to carve yourself, but you are not to carve yourself by someone else's pattern. You've got to let yourself be carved by your own nature. That's the trick. It's
Yeah,
got to
and
be
so
your nature.
yeah, and I want to add to that because I think that this is really beautiful the way you both are putting this, and that is that because like we can talk about white magic and black magic, but part of that is going back to see were there spells put upon you, were
Yeah.
there beliefs, where was there black magic used, unbeknownst, like parents do the best that they can or religion does the best that it can, but am I holding on to beliefs and now I've carved myself out of this belief to
Yes.
create something that I think will make me get along with people or look well in the world or be successful or whatever that is. And so when you're talking about uncarving is to see where did I believe something about myself or the world, where did I compare myself, and was that a spell I put upon myself so that now I've got this magic that I need to break to
Sure.
really find the true magic within.
Sure. Like I'll give you a practical example because
Yeah.
we're talking in a lot of abstract terms and they're high level or 30,000 foot, but let me take it down. I'm a financial advisor. I work with people on a million different things from estate planning to retirement to building and growing wealth, businesses, executive benefit, everything. But that is what I do. It is not what I am. I'm also a father. It is what I do, but not what I am. Tomorrow, I'm going to finish my appointments that I have. Then I'm going to take off my button-down shirt. I'm going to put on a t-shirt and some utility pants and my hiking boots, and I'm going off the grid. I'm not taking food. I'm not taking any electronics. I'm not taking anything, not even taking a tent. I'm going to go out into the middle of Texas where the hill country is. I'm going to stay out there. It's going to be raining. It's going to be storming and all. I'm going to stay out there from tomorrow noon till sometime Sunday night. It'll be windy. It'll be cold. It'll be rainy. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to be looking and glassing for an animal called a nilgai, which is an Indian antelope that was brought over in the early 1930s, whatever, to King Ranch. The chick got out, Valentina, the male brought more. So there's a lot on King Ranch you can hunt, but there's also some in the wild. And so I'm going to glass them. Very difficult to find and all. It's not really about me finding one or not. I'm looking for them.
What does it mean to glass?
So use your binoculars
Oh, okay. All right.
to find them.
And why are you not taking any food?
Because I don't need any food, because you can go 3 days without eating it. It's actually okay. But I'm
I
not
can't.
now if I find something to eat, I'll eat it, but only if I find it and catch it. You know, it could be a fish, could be an animal, whatever, or wild greens or something. But in the end, I'm not there to do that. I'm there to go back to uncarving who I am. Because with all of my understanding of science and medicine and finance, with all my understanding of psychology, biology, math, physics, it's not who I am. These are just understandings, but those understandings have nothing to do with who I am. Our environment and the things that happen to us do help form us, but it does not define us. If you want to practice the higher level magic, stop defining yourself.
That's beautifully said. I like that.
Because as long as you're defined, you can't change it. I can't look at this chair and go, and the fucker turns into an elephant. It's not going to happen.
Say that again.
No. If I said it twice, you would all explode. Fuck that. Right? But the point is stop defining things. The Tao cannot be defined. That's why it's the source of everything. Forced to name it, I'll call it Tao. We're just saying it's just the way. We're not there's no Tao. We're just using a word to describe a ubiquitously
it's
vague.
A way. It's a movement. It's a
right?
Yeah.
But why do I go out there? Because I want it to suck. Because I want it to be painful. Because I want it to be cold. Because I want it to be miserable. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with those things. If you live in them all the time, yeah, that would be problematic. But staying away from all the time would be just problematic.
So do you feel like that when you're in that state, that you almost bring your state in a sense of supersensory? Like
in some ways, but here's the thing: I'm also bringing out other parts of me that otherwise have no contact.
It would never come out, right?
So it makes me whole.
Yeah.
It makes me full, and we all have. I've said this in before and other things. We have a saint and we have a monster. If you make no context for your monster, you're going to be subverted, right? It was Jung who said, if you don't deal with the contents of your subconscious, they will continue to direct your life, and you'll call it fate. You've got to have a context for every part of you. Then you'll start to see the monster is not a bad thing. It's a magical thing. If, in fact, you'll give it the right environment and let it move its way out.
Because it's a superpower in a way.
So that's actually how I got to Tao, is by going on a very long fast. And by going in a long fast, it allowed me to shift whatever needed to be shifted to say, okay, my current path is not the right one. You need to look for a different one.
But here's the thing. Fasting isn't just about food. Fasting can also be about the thoughts in your fucking mind. Fasting can be about your identity. Fasting can be about your own.
Staying away from your cell phone or any computers is a big good fast right there.
But when I fast, I'm fasting from me. I'm getting and throwing that bitch in a box, taping it, saying break in case of emergency. And I'm going out and I'm being what I was born to be if reality had left us alone and never put a civilization on us. Now, is that me? No, no more than this is me, because you cannot aggregate the concept of me into any one or 100 or 1 million things. It would still be too limiting. It would still take away the magic. To be truly understanding of magic is to say that the thing that you are looking at is not nothing in a vacuous way. It is nothing as in it's everything undifferentiated way. Wuji, right? And when it's that way, then you'd only need to change the way you see it, the way you think about it, the context that you place on it. And the thing, without changing, will completely change and paradigm.
Yeah.
This is magic. It's not for children. It's not for people who are superstitious and unsophisticated. It's for people who truly, really want to understand. It can seem very wondrous only after you've been doing it. It's tedious and a pain in the ass, and it burns the mind because you're like, no, but I saw Harry Potter and he just waved a stick. Look, wave a stick all the fuck you want. You're still just a monkey waving a stick.
You're my Patronus, Lao.
Oh, I am. But does it make sense?
So is that what you were after, Aurora? Is that the magic is inside all of us
Yeah,
all the time?
yeah. No, it's a great discussion. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't really after you guys to say anything, but I'd love where the discussion went to. I want to actually just take it one step further because we're talking about the way we see ourselves. And last time we were also talking about the way we see other people, especially the other sex. And you know, the magic, you know, I think in relationships that sometimes gets taken out of relationships is because we stop really seeing the other person.
Yeah.
And we start to like I always say that it's okay to resent someone, you know, if you know, like to resentment is I shouldn't say it's okay, I'm just saying it's common. Resentments come up, you know, like you didn't do the laundry or you didn't do, you know, and those resentments. But when contempt comes up in a relationship, it's really over because contempt means I can do whatever I want. And that's when black magic really comes in. I can ruin you because you're contemptible. Therefore, you're not even human to me anymore. And we see this all the time in politics. We see this in relationships, in divorce, you know, where people, you know. So I'd like to talk about magic in relationships. Let's move it to that. And how can you, if your relationship isn't magical for you, how can you recreate it? Just like we're talking about recreating magic within ourselves, how can we create that in a relationship?
All right. I will go back to what we were just talking about, but I'll translate it over. If you keep thinking of yourself as one way, then you cannot have magic in your world. If you think of the world as one way, you cannot have magic. If you think of your partner as one way, your partner is not who you think your partner is. One of the biggest things that always used to happen, and it was inevitable to happen in my clinic, I would get mostly women clients because women are the ones who generally want to proactively work on themselves. I think they do it sometimes to their detriment. They do it too much, but at least they're doing something. Whereas generally men don't. Men are just happy to plod along.
Do you think it's also because women are maybe more unhappy or aware of their unhappiness?
No, because if you look at biologically with the amygdala and the basal lateral amygdaloid structures, pleasure comes from being unhappy. It's the craziest fucking thing. Pleasure comes from being unhappy.
For women.
No, for men and women both, our species. But women just have more connected brain tissue, so it's just more pronounced in women's behavior. Men do it. It's just so much more subtle and rudimentary.
So
But
wait a second. I let me see if I understand you. Are you saying that pleasure comes from being unhappy?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I mean, first off, can you think of a more Dowie statement than that? But second of all, it's a biological thing. Why? If you know that you can pull the lever on a slot machine and it will give out a payday, you will play that slot machines much less. You will almost get no addiction to it, none. But having that slot machine pay out very rarely and all get people there. It's not pleasure for the pleasure's sake that we seek pleasure. It's pleasure for the variability sake, which means there's a caustic thread of dis-ease within our love for pleasure.
So are you saying it's partly because you pull the lever because there's hope, but hope has that little bit of pleasure of a maybe? So it's sort of like the way, you know, they say that, you know, a way that an ape, you know, shows love is that they pick off the, you know, the bugs off. So it's like, let me find a project and let me work on you. Is that what you're saying?
In some ways, well, and these are come from neuropsychological studies and all of how we do what we do. But for example, if we know what we're getting all the time, it just becomes a thing, and there's no more pleasure to it. You do this and see this at Christmas time all the time in the Western Hemisphere. As long as there are presents under the tree and you don't know what they are, you're so excited.
Yeah.
the month before. So exciting. But when
So it's
you,
mystery.
not just mystery, but it's the anticipation. It could be socks. It could be underwear. It could be the most amazing thing you've ever wanted. You don't know. There's a disease. Oh, I want to wait. I want it now. Oh, I can't. But take the morning, you open all the presents that afternoon, there's always a malaise around the fucking house.
I know everybody's a little bit pissy.
The pleasure comes from the displeasure. This is how we're wired.
Right.
This is why you've never seen amazing stories of love where there's happily ever after. It never works. That's why, because you know how you know it doesn't work? Because it's happily ever after, the sun goes down and you never see the sun come the fuck back up. So you don't know, right? Cinderella's 16 years old in that story. 45-year-old Cinderella's like, oh yeah, fucking Prince Charming. Yeah, like you never put a fucking shoe on my foot again. She peaked at 16, man.
Yeah. Oh God.
Now here's the thing.
All right, Arthur, you need to comment on that. You can just see it.
I can't. There's
Yeah, it's biology, man. It's biology.
there's just nothing you can say.
It's biology
It's
because
not wrong. Let's put it this way.
well, even let's take it even to it. There's 3 ways in why people stay constantly at ill over pleasure. 1, they get what they don't want. 2, they get what they don't. They get what they do get what they don't want. They don't get what they want, but then they get what they don't want. And 3, they get exactly what the fuck they want, which creates all the suffering because you can't keep it.
Because you can't keep it, right? And so you keep going till you get another little hit.
You mean like
That's that dopamine. That's that dopamine.
Serotonin and oxytocin, yes. But those always degrade, so you're always going to need more.
So that's why we're all addicts.
Of course, you have to be an addict. I mean, you eat, you drink, you breathe, you're addicted to those things. There's no way you can give them up. But it's not a matter of being addicted or not addicted. The addiction that you have a problem with is when you make the wrong kind of relationship with the wrong thing. Meaning, I really want to have a marriage. I really want to be married and I want to have this amazing thing. But then you have every fucking fucked up relationship in the world because you have an inappropriate relationship with food or sex or alcohol or marijuana or whatever. The substance itself is not the problem. It's you don't know how to make the appropriate relationships with people. Therefore, you make an inappropriate relationship as a surrogate to something that's going to fuck you up. That's where the problem with addiction comes in. It's a connection issue. It has nothing to do with the substance. It's always about connection.
Because you can't connect with the people, so you use something else to connect with, and then that becomes your relationship. Right.
And that's your primary relationship, which always fucks up all your other relationships. Now, think about it. We personify almost everything we're we're addicted to. Oh, I'm going to be dancing with Mary Jane tonight. Yeah. Or, oh, me and Jack are going out drinking. Or, oh, let's be a lady tonight. It's always fucking personified. We glamorize it. I have a student. He's in Holland. Great guy. I love him to death. But he sends me a message this morning. You know, I've got this fantasy of how a woman should be. And I know that my girl will never be that fantasy. I'm like, motherfucker, you just put your whole story on blast. Get rid of a fantasy about a person in your head. Nobody has a mandate to live to some fucking standard in your head. Enjoy them as who they are. But this goes back to the magic thing. Understand that who they are is not a product of the behavior you're seeing. The behavior you're seeing is a product of who they think they are. But who they actually are, they don't know either, because they wouldn't be such an asshole to themselves if they knew who they were. Yeah. But they've carved themselves. So you can say, I hate that person. But what you're really saying is, I hate who that person thinks they are and are acting that way. Now, you want to do magic on your person? First, don't try to change them. Don't do shit with them. Work on your damn self. Because if you model the behavior, you have a very good chance of having an influence on them. If you don't model the behavior, I'm not changing me. I'm fine. You fucking change. Well, then you're done. You're done. And the gardener's probably doing things.
Byron Katie says it only takes one person to have a good relationship. And I've really seen that to be true.
That's really absolutely true.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you understand who you are, which is undefinable and not finite, then any given moment, you are one decision away from a totally different life. Yes or no? You're one decision away from a different life. You make it and then you act on that decision, right? Arthur could go become a Tibetan Buddhist if you want to. Yes or no? He could become an opium den.
Got the hair for it.
For it.
I have limitations.
No, that is your dukkha. That is your fall.
I reach my limitations when it comes to Buddhism. I tried it, not for me.
Why, you don't like your prostate being bigger?
Don't like that up there.
Yeah. So no, but seriously, right? So you're one decision away from a totally different life. The trick is whatever's keeping you from making that decision, you're blaming on the other person. It's always you. So understanding who they are. The person asked me in this email this morning, Lao, do your wife ever get angry with you? Does it ever get frustrated with you? Do you get frustrated with her? Do you have a picture perfect relationship? I think it's picture perfect, but it's not picture perfect as you might think in a Hallmark movie or something. It's picture perfect because it's real. I don't particularly care for most of the things she does. I don't care. It's none of my business. It's what she does. It's none of my business. What she does is a mark on her. What I do is with it is a mark on me. But I let her be who she is, whether I like it, agree with it, condone it. I don't give a shit because she's on her life path. I'm on mine. And a lot of things I do irritate the entire daylights. I irritate you people. I sure the fuck know I irritate her. But here's the thing. I don't give a fuck that I irritate her either. That's her shit, not my shit. I don't internalize her shit. It's none of my business. I'm dowing my Tao. Whether she's here or not, I'm going to Tao my Tao. This is just the way it's going to be. She can either deal with that or she can't. I'm the same with vice versa. She Tao's her Tao. I don't interfere with it. She'll say something and I'll say, think about all these years and this. And she'll say, well, how come you didn't tell me that earlier? It's none of my fucking business. I'm not going to fucking tell you how to Tao your Tao. You're ready for it. It came up now. We'll talk about it now. But I've thought this for years. I'm just never going to say anything. Why? None of my fucking business to intervene in someone's life. I accept her life and path as it is. She comes to the understanding, she will. She won't, she won't. She has that right. Whether or not I'm there is kind of irrelevant at this point. Does that make sense?
So that's a very difficult thing for people to understand, is that you may think you know the answer for someone, right? You may think you know what is best for someone because you went through it or because it shows up in your life, but the reality is you don't. No. What Lao just said is extremely humble, right? And also compassion, like we talked about in another episode, that you cannot help someone who doesn't come and say, I need help, who doesn't open their mouth and say, all right, here's what I need help with, or here's what I need help to understand. And that is an incredible, difficult skill to achieve. Honestly, it is very, very difficult not to interfere in other people's lives, not to say something if they didn't ask you.
And not just that.
I liked what you said to me early on, Arthur. When we first met, you said, I don't have a right to try and awaken anyone.
Right. Yes.
I think that was really, really wise. And I also had a teacher who used to say, ask a little, give a little, ask a lot, give a lot, ask nothing, give nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is I get a lot of people who refute that and they say, no, if you love somebody, you're going to be there to listen, man. Old Mother Hubbard lived in a cupboard, fuck all that. Stay out. You're not somebody's mommy. And even your kids, if you're constantly mothering them by telling them, you're not mothering them, you're meddling. You're going to end up in a retirement home in Florida and they're never going to call you. You want to avoid that? Don't be a Buddhist. But also, you don't know why somebody is here on the planet. You don't know. And that's the magic of it. Everybody's path is in the hands of the genius, the genie, the jinn, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And therefore, what kind of hubris do you have to think you know better? Now, this is where people are coming from, and it's a nice thing. It's all beautiful. But if you love somebody, it's not intuitive. That's why I'm going back to the reality is not intuitive. The intuitive thing is, if you love somebody, you help them. Yes. But the non-intuitive part of helping them is leave them the fuck alone. That's the non-intuitive. Because no, you give and you do all these things. I had a mother once tell me, she was like, you know, as a mom, I've just given and given until I've disappeared. I'm like, I get it, but here's your problem. You've disappeared and then now you're bitching that you're not seen. You can't give and give until you fucking disappear and then bitch you're not seen. You can't see this invisible people. Hence invisible. So you either fucking disappear and be unseen and shut the fuck up, or stop disappearing and actually be who you are, let them be who they are, and then you can make real progress together instead of you resenting them because expectations are resentments under construction. Simple as
Yeah,
that.
right. I know we're gonna finish up, but I just wanted to say one thing that I noticed, that I do this in my own like practice, my own Taoist practice. I do this with my own kids and with my own friends, and you know, even with you guys. And that is the magic for me in other people is to just see them, like just, you know, like see them without a concept, see them without, and you know, and what I notice is that everyone is just irresistible. And it is so magical for me to just, it doesn't even matter. It could just be a person on the street, to just see them is a miracle, like, because they are miracles. And just to see that, for me, that, I don't know, that brings magic into any relationship.
I would agree, and I would take and only add one thing is that to see them before you even look at them, before you even try to look at them, start with one fundamental ground. You don't know shit. If you don't look at them, I know them. You don't. Start, you don't know them. Now let them unfold in front of you.
Yeah. Be
If you
curious.
go, oh, I know. Oh, he's been this way for 20 years. That's why your marriage sucks. That's why your relationship, your partner, business partnership, whatever, it sucks because you have contempt prior to investigation.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. And they can't change because that's who they are. You've cast them, and they're playing that role. And even if they try and change out of that role, you're going to keep putting them in that role until you
Typecast.
stop
Yeah, typecast them.
typecasting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Was that
So
magic for you?
yeah. So I just wanted to say that you know, I've been sending out newsletters, and if anybody would like to be on our newsletter, please email me at healingdaomassage@yahoo.com, and I'll send out these newsletters and with this stuff. And you know, maybe down the road we'll post some other things, but we'll also post our email addresses and our websites down below. And as we said earlier, if you like this, please share it with other people. And the three of us have started to talk about putting together a retreat, and maybe just sort of mention it out there just to kind of put that. We're considering something this year in Vermont, I think, right? And so if you're interested, also, you can email me or email Arthur or Lao and let us know that you might be interested. Do you guys want to add anything to that? Okay.
No, you were magical. Thank you.
I'm not going
You guys were magical.
get sparkles now.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Have a great week.